The folks over at Gobege sent me this 12-volt air compressor to check out, so we're going to take a look at it today. I'm curious to see how this is going to be, because having a 12-volt air compressor that I can put in a toolbox of my pickup truck and have out in the woods whenever I need to pump up a tire or need some compressed air for any other reason would be very helpful. And this would be a good solution to that. Another thing that's got my attention too is that this air compressor is rated for 150 PSI. Now, those of you that drive 3/4 or 1 ton pickup trucks, y'all know that a lot of your tire pressures are like 80 PSI. On my F250, it calls for 80 PSI. And them cigarette lighter pumps you buy at the auto parts store, at the big box store that plugs into the cigarette lighter of your car, them things work fine for car tires that you're pumping up to 35 PSI. But if you need a pickup truck tire pumped up, them things aren't going to do the job to get to 80 PSI. And I'm hoping that this will hold up to that. It has the other specs listed here: 12 volts, 45 amps at 12 volts, and 580 watts, 6.35 cubic feet per minute at 0 PSI, 60 millimeter cylinder diameter. The air hose length is 26 feet along with the power cord of 8 feet. So there shouldn't be any problems with the power cords not being long enough to get to rear wheels on a long wheelbase vehicle, such as a pickup truck. And of course, like everything else made today, it's made in China. Not everything that comes from China is junk. Some things are good. So we're going to see how it is. Let's open it up and take a look at it. So it comes in a nice carrying case. That's good. Open it up here and pull it out. An instruction manual. Like most of us, we don't really pay attention to things like that. There's the compressor itself. Some alligator clips that go on your battery terminals. All right, so here it is. It's got a metal casing on it. The base is metal. This cover right here is plastic, but that's covering the electronics. But the handle and everything's made out of metal. And what I'm also noticing is it has like your typical 1/4-inch air chuck connector on it, like a air hose you use on your regular air compressor. So I reckon that clips on right there. This hose, it feels like it's made out of pretty good quality. And it has this in here where you can screw the different attachments onto it. It comes with this one for your tire valves that you can put on there. And I like that it locks in place. We'll see how good that works. So you just attach it here. And then you can put air in your tires. And the hose has a pressure gauge on it. The alligator clips have this insulation on them, and they feel like they're pretty good quality. You know, over time, some things like that will tear up and you may have to replace them, but these feel pretty good. They feel much stronger than some other alligator clips I've found on other things. It has the on-off switch there, a circuit breaker there. It comes with these 3 different tips you can use for putting air into things. This needle tip for pumping up like basketballs or soccer balls. You can use tips like these for blowing up like beach balls or them air mattresses for camping. So I'm reading over the instruction book a little bit, and if y'all have ever bought stuff from overseas, sometimes instructions can be a little vague or grammatical errors. Sometimes the translations don't quite add up to our English, and some things you just have to figure out on your own, which there is some good information in here, but it's typical instructions from an overseas product. So I got a 12-volt deep cell battery sitting over here. We're gonna run this thing off of. I got this little tip on the end of the hose. I'm gonna hook it up and we're gonna see what it does and see if it works. This 26-foot air hose that it comes with is plenty long enough for any full-size pickup truck. But if you got a longer trailer or a longer RV, you may need some extra hose. The good thing about it is this end of the connection, it's just pretty much your standard air chuck hoses on 1/4-inch air lines. So you can pretty much take any of these air hoses, this 1/4-inch fittings, and extend this hose out. And the alligator clips go onto a battery terminal just fine, no problems. So it puts out air out of here. It's not like using the air hose on an air compressor with a tank, but you do get air out of it. If you're trying to put air in a beach ball or a mattress or something, you could stick that in that hole and pump it up and not kill your lungs with it. So now that we got it out and we know it works, let's try to put some air in a tire. This is a wheel and tire for a 1/2-ton pickup truck. You normally see average of 35 PSI in a tire like this. So that's what we're gonna pump it up to. It is completely flat. I removed the core out of the valve stem to let all the air out of it. And so we're gonna see how long it takes to pump this tire up to 35 PSI. The instructions state that you can't read the PSI of the tire while the machine is running due to the velocity of the air, and it makes sense. So what I'll do is, when I turn the machine off to check the pressure, I'll stop the stopwatch, and when I turn it back on, I'll start the stopwatch again to give us a better idea of how long it really takes to pump this tire up. It took just over 3 minutes to pump this full-size tire up from flat to 35 PSI. I think that's pretty good. Now, if you got too much air in the tire, you need to let some air out. You can just loosen up this fitting here where the tire chuck screws onto the hose itself. Just unscrew it just a little bit till it starts leaking air, and you can let air out that way. Or you can just take the end of the tire chuck and just put it on there without tightening it down and let some air out that way too. Now let's try the same test again using this cheap cigarette lighter pump that you can buy in the auto parts store or the Buy Mart store. It took 10 minutes and 37 seconds for this cheap tire pump to pump up this tire to 35 PSI versus the 3 minutes and 2 seconds that the Gobege compressor did. So the Gobege compressor pumps tires up way faster than these cheaper ones. So I'm very impressed by this at this point. This one, by the time it got to the end of it, it sounded like it was struggling very bad. The hose is hot, the compressor's hot, well, this pump's hot, the wires are hot. That's about all the duty cycle you can get out of it. And that was just pumping this tire up to 35 PSI. So far, I'm really liking the Gobege heavy duty air compressor. This thing pumps up tires way better than them cheap little cigarette lighter pumps. Now let's go try a different tire. Now that I got a flat tire on my F250, we're going to use the Gobege compressor to pump it up and see how it handles this tire. Now this tire will be pumping up to 80 PSI and we'll see how it handles it. It took 10 minutes and 55 seconds to pump this tire up to full capacity at 80 PSI. So this compressor did pump this tire up all the way. So I'm impressed by it. Even though this thing's a little warm to the touch, just like any other electric power tool after using it, it did not sound like it struggled at all. Off camera, I checked my tire pressure on my truck with the gauge I normally use, and this gauge that comes with the Gobege pump is pretty spot on. Let's see how well it pumps up this old flat soccer ball. Looks good to me. So the Gobege air compressor pump worked great. If you got a truck or SUV that holds more than 35 or 40 PSI of air, this is the kind of air pump you're going to want to inflate your tires. Not one of these cheapo ones. These cheapo ones are good for passenger cars, but for trucks holding more than 35 PSI, I recommend something like this. And if you're in the market for something like this, I recommend this one. I don't see nothing wrong with it. Now, because this doesn't have an air tank on it, it's not like you can use it to spray down compressed air with. But with a little ingenuity and a portable air tank, you can get creative with it. Once I'm done with this video, I'll be putting this in the toolbox of my truck. Now, the only con I got to say about this thing is when you first open the box out of its packaging, you get that whiff of, if you ever been in a Harbor Freight and you walk in the door, it's that same exact smell, that Chinese tool smell, which it wears off after a while. And if it's going in a toolbox of a pickup truck, you don't really care. But if you was going to store this inside the passenger compartment of an SUV or something, I would set this stuff out on a table for a few days and just let it air out good before putting it in my vehicle. I hope you found the video useful and helpful. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching.